Okay, hold tight everyone, because this is going to get controversial, isn't it? This is a concept version for the new BMW M3. It gives us an idea of what that legend's great-great-great-grandchild will look like on the outside.
And you're about to get a flavour of life inside. Oh, and this is what it's going to sound like. Because there will be two new BMW M3s, a petrol hybrid and this car, the M Division's first EV. It's M's take on the new i3 saloon, and it will go head to head against the next petrol M3 in BMW's own range. That means we'll get cold, hard sales data on how hard it really is to convert M car fanatics to an official electric alternative.
Now, BMW is so keen to keep this car a secret right now that they won't share any details on it, and I only saw it in the studio for the first time about 20 minutes ago. So I'm going to talk you around all the details that leap out to me in person, and then we'll throw to future Ollie in voiceover. Are you up there?
Yep, I'm here.
And he'll give you the technical bits.
Do we really sound like that? It's been a wild summer so far for electric reinventions of icons. The AMG 4-door EV and the Ferrari Luce were revealed after we shot this, but could the electric M3 actually generate some positivity? Let's start with the looks.
So, details then. This car is brimming with them, some brand new and some very respectfully taken from the M archive. Let's start with the quad headlight setup, not the big kind of soulful eyes we used to have, but these very aggressive yellow LEDs. As you've seen on the standard BMW i3 that this car will be based on, we've not got the big beaver nose anymore. We've got these much slender, slimmer, neater imitations of the BMW kidney grille. You might notice how the whole car kind of converges to a point here. That is to give it the BMW Sharknose like you got on the original 6 Series. It's a bit of a signature in the shape of the car. Means you don't have to do it all with badges and livery. Just the bodywork should scream BMW. But not all of it does. I mean, look at this here. They call this trimaran design, naming your sporty saloon after a triple-hulled racing yacht might seem a bit odd, but you'll see it re-referenced around the back of the car. We've got supports for the aero in 3s, and of course it's an M3, so there's lots of little 3 motifs all around the car. Now, aerodynamics is obviously a huge deal with EVs, but it's always normally about cutting drag and cranking out more range. This is meant to be more about performance, so we've got a big splitter down here, and then you might have noticed this air intake, or rather this air extractor in the bonnet. 3 tiers to it, again, because we're all about the number 3 here, but this is funneling air that's been cut through by the splitter out of the bonnet, very like Ferrari Pista Speciale kind of technique on a super saloon, and of course they can do that because there's not an engine under here. How are we doing? We okay? We're not feeling too triggered yet? We perhaps even maybe enjoying some of the look of this? Can I carry on? Okay, come on, let's look at another classic M3 detail. Wheel arch. You see this tiny jutting piece of metal is one of the iconic signatures of the original M3 because this was a homologated race car. The race team needed wider tracks, and that meant that the road-going M3 had the blistered arches. Now, loads of M3s since have had a punched-out stance, but the M Concept Neue Klasse takes that and makes it a bit more contemporary, a bit more subtle perhaps, but you see this curved line in the bodywork? Yeah, that has been taken straight from the E30. It meets the aero regs, it meets the pedestrian regulations, but you still get a squat stance. And that's what this car needs, because underneath it has 4 electric motors. Isn't that right, Tech Ollie?
Yep, BMW has gone fully lit with the power and performance, desperate to make you accept that an electric car can be a true M3. At its core will be a 100 kilowatt-hour battery, but the battery's chemistry is different to a normal i3 saloon, which means it can recharge and discharge faster. In other words, it hoses more power out, can regen harder, and it will suck up more power quickly at a pit stop. The battery is also structural to the chassis, which is great for stiffening up the body, but doesn't sound easily swappable in the event of battery upgrades later in the car's life or crash damage. Anyway, the motors. The so-called BMW M eDrive consists of 2 drive units, one on each axle, with 2 motors per unit. The motors each supply power to an individual wheel through their own gearbox, kind of like the electric Mercedes G-Wagon, and BMW is whispering they'll be capable of over 1,000 brake horsepower. But they're shouting that this isn't a one-trick drag race pony. So, you can have 4-wheel drive traction, you can have rear drive skids, you can have a lower friction 2-wheel drive cruising mode, and infinite torque vectoring to quell understeer and adjust the car's cornering path and drift angle.
Now we'll get this car spun around in a moment, but before we get there, M fans will have also spotted the wheel design. Well, you might have had an easier job if they'd painted it silver, but anyway, notice the intricate sort of triangular spoke motif has again been taken wholesale from the E30, but it's obviously bigger because you've got to get massive ceramic brakes under there, and we've got this big center lock hub, blue hubs on the right hand side, red hubs on the left because we're harking to motorsport. But I think that's a really clever update of the original car's wheel. This is much more modern M car, the mirror. Normal M cars, they have these sort of jutting spokes. They've now wrapped it round vertically and put this fin here because apparently that has a palpable aero effect. Good for reducing drag, helps with efficiency. Maybe it's good for refinement, reducing wind noise as well. Just while I'm here, I've been trying to spot clues as to how much of a concept car this is, because sometimes we're told, oh, this is a design study. You'll never be able to buy this, and then it comes out looking identical. Sometimes cars change out of all recognition. This to me does look very like the i3 that we've already seen with M Attitude added, but there is some concept car clues. We have no windscreen wipers at all. They're not even hidden down here in the cowling, so that's obviously not going to be road legal. These mirrors, they don't fold, they look very vulnerable. And you might have noticed no door handles. And they don't pop out either because that's not allowed in China anymore. So this has got a kind of Mustang Mach-E style fin to open the door. But I think, for what I'm hearing, that's going to go for production and you'll have proper door handles. Good. Next, let's have a look at some materials. Obviously, if you're buying an electric M3, you care deeply about the environment. So you're going to care about where your carbon fibre roof comes from, right? All M3s since the E46 CSL, I think, have had a lightweight roof panel, and this one is no different, except for the fact it's completely different, because this is ecologically sourced flax fibre. Making this generates 40% less CO2 than normal carbon fibre, and you can see it's got this matte finish because, like race cars, you don't have this heavier, thicker, less ecological lacquer applied to it. And BMW likes it so much, it's not just used it on the roof, it's used it on those mirrors and on the sill rocker panels as well.
Still with me? Okay, let's have a look at how BMW has mirrored the design at the rear with the front.
Before I get my head quite literally stuck into the details at the back of the M Concept Neue Klasse, ask yourself one question. If we covered up the BMW badge and the concept legend here and all the M tricolor stuff, would you recognise that as a BMW? I think there's just enough DNA inherited from the likes of that car that there is enough BMW-ness here carried over. Perhaps it's the Hofmeister kink you see in the pillar here. Perhaps it's the shape of the taillights. BMW must be the only car company in the world now not doing full width light bar. And isn't it nice to see a different design? We've got a slight L shape like so many BMWs have had. And the way that these cut all the way almost into the center of the boot lid is very E30. What else? Well, another BMW trademark is your stubby boot lid on your sports saloons and the Ducktail spoiler, except here they've split it because designers I've got to have some fun. Maybe someone was inspired by the Pagani Zonda. Can't really blame them. Then lower down, we've got more ideas that have been taken from the front. So you might have noticed at the front there were quad white LEDs. They are inspired by BMW's endurance racing cars. They call them track lights. Now we've got red ones on the back because what are there normally 4 of on the back of recent M cars that are missing from here? Yes, there are no imitation or implied exhaust pipes, but they wanted 4 of something. So 4 track lights, and I like the authenticity of not having fake exhaust, fake grills, fake aero, nothing implied, no cosplay. This is meant to be authentic. BMW thinks that's how it will win over you, the skeptics. So what is authentic is the colossal amount of motorsport-inspired aero down here. Like the front, we've got this trimaran thing, again, 1, 2, 3, holding on more flax fibre, like that splitter at the front, but look at the amount of space, the amount of negative space, they call it, the amount of aero. I mean, I can literally fit my entire head inside the rear bumper, and if I reach under it, yeah, the diffuser's so big I can basically tickle its tummy. I've never seen anything like that on a street legal car, and that's probably because it probably isn't going to be street legal, but maybe an interpretation of that could come on a future Mi3 CSL, perhaps. Very cool idea. Of course, you could argue big, heavy EVs, do they need loads of aero and downforce? They're not really downforce cars, are they? But this is what we were promised with EVs, that they would allow car makers to change their platform, change the shape, try new solutions. And that's not something you've ever been able to see with an M3 that has to have an exhaust poking out the back of it. Tell you what though, while you're around the back here, just look at the haunches of this car. Look at its stance, look at the way it's sat down on its wheels. Look at this great big blistered shoulder here. That is a classic M3 detail. Look at the current M3 Touring from behind. You have the standard 3 Series Touring roof, and all of a sudden it just becomes the Hulk. And it's definitely not skip shoulders day, have it? It becomes a unit. That's what we've got here again. So I like that this has been carried over, and it's not just for style because, of course, the quad motors, wider track, there's an engineering reason for it. So yeah, I don't know how many of you are liking this or not. I get to look around this car, you see. I get to just walk around it. I get to take it in. I can't see the comments that are currently forming under this. Yeah, it's getting hot down there. Maybe I should cool off, and we can see how much BMW DNA has been inherited inside.
Remember, this is officially a design model, but BMW has a reputation for concept cars which barely change before going on sale. So this cockpit should be full of relevant clues.
Well, if you've seen inside what BMW is calling the Neue Klasse, this new generation of EVs, which has started with the iX3, Top Gear's car of the year, no less, then actually all this looks quite familiar. We have this small steering wheel. Small because you don't look through it to see how fast you're going, you look over it to these projected instruments and data banks which are projected under the windscreen. Having driven an iX3 now on the road in the UK, it works so well. It works way better than a Tesla, where you have everything happening on one central screen, including your speed and refocusing to look here and then outside and then on the steering wheel and then here and then out there is a pain. Having data right where you're looking anyway, kind of helpful. A key factor of the BMW M car is the driving position. You know, I've got tons of adjustment in here. Can't believe how much this wheel will move around for you. But I definitely feel like I'm not sat as low and on the deck as I would have been in a previous generation M car, which is hardly surprising, is it? Because this is a skateboard chassis EV. The batteries are all in a big flat chunk underneath me, and that does mean, unless you cut a hole in those, sort of like the Porsche Taycan does, the rear legroom, you can't get the seat on the deck. I've got good sight lines, got a nice view of my vented bonnet, and the relationship to the steering wheel and the seat, the pedals actually feel quite lifted, which is, again, that's a motorsport factor, isn't it? Raise the pedals so you can have a flat floor, so you can generate aero under the car. But I think the purists are going to want this seat to go lower, and they're going to be disappointed. The steering wheel design itself is going to be controversial because Well, it is in the standards iX3 and i3. We have touch sensitive buttons here on what I guess you could call the spokes, even though they're sort of too stubby to be spokes. I'm not a fan of the touch sensitive stuff, I have to say. But then physical buttons for your M related toggles. In fact, look out for anything red. Anything red that's on a control here changes how the car behaves. So we have red on our gear selector. We have red on our M1 and M2 shortcut buttons to save the settings. We have M on these menu buttons. Red on this button, which I think will turn off the ADAS assistance, basically the shut up all the bongs button. Really interesting how they've made a feature of that. And then red on these paddle shifters.
The paddle shifters will control something the M division is calling emulated gear shifts. They love a pun, the Germans. This will follow the path of Hyundai's N cars and the AMG four-door in simulating pauses in torque delivery and adding adjustable power curves to mimic a paddle shift gearbox and the excitement of a petrol engine.
Now, you might have seen BMW when it was developing this car was taking the likes of the V10 M6 and the old M4 GTS into an anechoic chamber, recording their engine notes and then digitizing them to sort of inspire the soundtrack you're going to get inside here. I'm guessing it's all going to be very configurable. As a little preview, if I actually play with the pedals down here, push the one on the right, yeah, that doesn't sound like a V10 or a inline 6 from a carbon air-boxed CSL, does it? It sounds... It's got that futury spaceship warble, but hey, it's a concept car. While I do flex the pedals, we get this sort of power meter on the screen ahead of me. It goes from red to purple to blue. Obviously, that's the M tricolor, but it's also meant to invoke the colour of pure electricity, a kind of bright purple, almost like lightning effect.
It's a fake M-car noise and transmission, and some people are going to hate that. The alternative, though, is Tesla-style silence and a totally linear whack in the back. So which would you prefer?
So you know earlier I mentioned there's little clues you can spot to see how much of a concept car versus how real world a car is? Again, we've got wiper stalks. Despite the fact there aren't wipers, we've got this light and indicator control stalk here. It all feels very finished. And this screen, well, that's straight out of an i3 and an iX3. If you don't like the slanted kind of parallelogram design, well, apparently that is also taken from BMWs of old. It's a nod to how BMW interiors used to be driver orientated. They would tilt the whole console towards the driver to make you feel like you're in command and the passenger, well, they're not even relevant. That's why this is tilted towards the steering wheel. It does look odd, especially on camera, I've noticed, but then when you're sat in the car and you're looking at it from an angle and the steering wheel doesn't chop it off like it does in the new Mercedes with the full dash width hyper screens, it works quite well. And BMW is very good at software now. On this one, well, it's kind of a slimmed down version, so I can't show you the entire menus, but it is interesting that if you tap this M logo in the center, it takes you to a very motorsport sort of track day readout with just your G meter, your tire temperatures, your sort of battery temperature and status, just in black and white. It's simplified, it's sort of shrunken down to the bare essentials, which is, well, quite motorsport, I guess. And your temperature controls are always on the screen, so you might stay a bit cooler than I am in here. The track map, nerds will have spotted, is Le Mans, which is where this car will have been revealed by the time that you see this. Anyway, what else can we learn from having a look around the M Neue Klasse inside? Over on these projected screens on the far side of the dashboard on the horizon here, we've got lap timer, we've got sector timer, we've got various temperatures. Interesting that we also have conditions for day mode, damp mode, wet mode. Again, how much of all this is carried over into the real car that we'll see in production later, we're not sure yet, but it's interesting to see the designers playing with ideas. You might wonder what this chunk is down here. That is quite literally the Heart of Joy. Now, this is a weird new concept inside a BMW, certainly not something you've seen before, but it's at the heart of why BMW called this the Neue Klasse. You see, EVs up to now, one of the problems apparently was there were too many ECUs, too many control units, computers arguing with each other. What BMW has done at great expense and complication is tried to consolidate all of the car's brains into one central unit, which gives you faster reaction times, but also a more natural feel to how the car behaves when you're driving it. Now, yes, the name Heart of Joy is slightly nauseating, if we're honest, and making a bank of microchips a feature in a car, well, it's probably not the most emotional thing in the world, but this is an EV M3. I guess they're spitballing, they're trying ideas. That's why you've got this switch as a gear selector rather than an actual shift lever. Not going to read too much else into what we've got here, because I think in a real car, there'll probably be some cup holders, there'll be some USBs and storage. This has been pared back to have some fun for the concept, but I should think we'll see some seats like this in the real car. They feel pretty similar to the seats you now get in an M4 CSL. The carbon speed bump between your legs is back, but again, it's made out of our organically sourced hemp, and there's more of that in the seats back here. I shouldn't think the strut brace for the harnesses will remain in a production car, but heck, BMW loves an optional extra. They wanted to charge extra for subscription heated seats a while ago, so maybe you'll have to subscribe to that as well.
And here's something more for you to ponder.
We made it. I think the car world was a simpler place when the E30 M3 rewrote the Super Saloon history books 7 generations ago. Most of you, I'm sure, made up your mind about an electric M3 a long time ago, but I'm interested, comment down below if you've changed your minds, having watched this, anything piqued your interest, anything making you give this the benefit of the doubt. Definitely the most controversial M3 ever, way more so than turbocharging, way more than going 4-wheel drive, way more than even changing the name. M4, anyone? That was a story back in the day. But either way, subscribe to Top Gear so you never miss a first look, controversial or otherwise.